Hi everyone, welcome back. We're going to now talk about completing the square, and we're going to do these two examples twice. This method we're just going to call the algebraic approach, and this is the way you were probably shown in algebra how to do this. And then we're going to have another video. I'm going to do these same two problems. I'm going to show you this neat trick I just learned about 5-6 months ago that I think you all will really like and will help you complete the square a little bit easier. So let's look at this procedure a little bit. So basically what you have to do is you have to basically move all the terms, so there's going to be one with a square and one with a first power, to one side of the equation, and the constant term, or the term without the variable, has to be on the other side of the equation. Now, one of the nastier parts of this is if the coefficient of the square term is not 1, you must factor that coefficient out of the side with the variables, even if it does not go into the coefficient of the degree 1 term evenly. I think my example will be nice enough, but this is usually when I tell people we told you a white lie when we said you can only factor if things are uncommon. You can always factor, it's just you start getting fractions and stuff and it just gets ugly. Then we get probably the part that most people are familiar with. You divide the coefficient of the degree 1 term, so that should say degree 1. Little typo there. And then I always tell people, save this number, because we're going to use it a couple times. We're going to use it in the next step because we're going to square it and add it both sides. And then if we had to factor out something in step 2, we have to do an additional step, which it's just easier to see than to read it. I try to word it as best as I can. Then on step 5, you're going to have to factor the perfect square trinomial you'll get, and that's where this number you saved from step 3 is going to come into effect, because your factorization is going to be your variable, which usually will be x, plus whatever that number you saved squared. So this helps you when you, for example, the number you saved when you're is a fraction or something, and you start getting perfect square trinomials with fractions in it. So this save the number technique really helps you with these uglier factorizations. Then if we factored out something step 2, we have to divide both sides of the equation by that number. Take the square root of both sides of the equation, not forgetting to write the plus and minus on the constant side, and just solve for x. So let's see this procedure in action. So the first thing we need to do is get all the x stuff on one side of the equation and get the constant stuff on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, let's do some side work. And we're going to take the 6, or this negative 6, we got to take the sign with it, and we're going to divide it by 2. And this is going to be a negative 3. This is the number you save, because you're going to use it a couple times. First time you're going to use it is you're going to take negative 3 and square it and get 9. And this is what you add to both sides. So let's do that. We're going to get an x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 7 plus 9. So let's simplify the right hand side as x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 16. Now at this step, this is where you save your number comes into effect, because this will always factor as x plus whatever number you save. So you take this number that you saved and you put it in right there. So in that case, this will be a negative 3 equal to 16. And then I'll just simplify the plus negative to make this x minus 3, and I forgot the squared there, squared equals 16. Now we take the square root of both sides of the equation, so we'll get x minus 3. The square root of 16 is 4, but since we're taking the square root of a number, we need this plus or minus, so that x is going to be 3 plus or minus 4. So when you add 4, you get 7, and when you subtract 4, you get negative 1. And so we should check our answers to make sure it works. So let's do the check for x equals 7. So we'll get 7 squared minus 6 times 7 minus 7 equals 0. Well, this is going to be 49 minus 42 minus 7 equals 0. So that checks. So let's check x equals negative 1. Not positive 1, negative 1. And so we're going to get a negative 1 squared minus 6 times a negative 1 minus 7 equals 0. So we'll get a positive 1 plus 6 minus 7, which definitely equals 0. So these are our solutions. Alright, so let's try a harder example. So this will be 6x squared plus 24x minus 30 equal to 0. So first thing again, we're going to group the x's on one side of the equation and the y, or the constant, excuse me, on the other side of the equation. Now notice that the x squared has a coefficient other than 1, so we're going to have to factor that out. And it's nice enough to go into 24 evenly, but I just want to note that if it doesn't go into evenly and you factor, you can just always write it as a fraction like this, since I factored, because remember, factoring is just dividing, so it's just really 24 over 6, which I'm going to simplify to 4, which is what we would normally do in this type of problem. Now we're going to take this positive 4 and do our side work. So side work. So we're going to divide this by 2 and get a 2, and this is the number we're going to save for our 2 spots we need it for it. So the first thing, we're going to use it right away to get a 4. So what we're going to do now is add to both sides with this. But we have to be careful this time. So we're going to take a 6, and we're going to have an x squared plus 4x, and then this plus 4 will go in right here. Equals 30. Then we're going to add 4, but notice that this 4 in here has a 6 being multiplied to it. So this is what I mean by you have to multiply by the number from step 2. So you just, if you have this number outside the parentheses, when you add to the other side, you can't just add the 4, you have to multiply it by the 6, because that represents the distributing of this 6 to this 4. And so we're going to get 6x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 30 plus 24. So this will be 6x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 54. So now we're going to factor, so this will be 6 times x plus something squared equals 54, and that something is again always going to be this number you save. So this number you save just goes in right there. And then the next step is before we take the square root, we have to divide by that 6. So divide both sides by 6, and we'll get that x plus 2 all squared is equal to 9. So we'll get x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3. So x should equal negative 2 plus or minus 3. So we should get that x equals a negative 5, or x should equal positive 1. Alright, and I'll leave the student to check those answers as well, since we already did one example with checking. But you should always check your answers to make sure A, your answers make sense, and B, you didn't make any errors. And always go back to the original equation, so go all the way back to this one. So that's it for this video, so we're going to go on to doing this a second way, and we'll see how that works when we do that. I'll see you then.